experience I had while working in a hotel. The first time it really shocked me. I was like, oh my God, we just, from this one banquet, we threw away so much food. And that's happening all over the world every day. I mean, I grew up as well with grandparents. My grandparents, they were growing up during the war. So for them, it's really important that they save every bit of food and never waste it. And they still do that today. And so I was, to be honest, very, very lucky and to have found someone like Noemi. And also, I'm still super happy we started this together because we knew each other as friends before. You also know how the person reacts a bit in certain situations, but that, of course, you learn it a lot more when you work on a project on every day together. I would do it again. I wouldn't have done it without her.
Welcome to Seedstars podcast. Seedstars is an organization that aims to have an impact in emerging markets by supporting the local entrepreneurs, investing in their ventures, but also sharing their story globally because we really believe they are the true heroes. We'll be listening to them and other thought leaders and disruptors that are really shaping the future of tomorrow, and we hope that together we can build a sustainable impact. Before we start, I would like to thank our partner SPEI from the Canton Vaud Economic Affairs and Innovation Center.
All right, Anna, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here. How are you today? Good?
Yeah, very good. How are you?
Perfect. Yeah, very nice. Yeah. It's a crazy day we're living in, crazy time, but apart from this, I think we're doing well. So thanks for asking. Look, what I want to do is I just want to give you maybe a brief introduction about myself and to the listeners so they know who they're dealing with. And then we can start discussing a bit more about you and what you've been doing in the past few years now. Is that fine?
Perfect.
Cool. So basically, I'm Alex Weber. I was born in Switzerland. We actually studied in the same university. We talked about it on the phone earlier. I was employee number 1 at Seedstars. That was about, 6, 7, almost maybe 7 years ago now. I worked as an entrepreneur in residence for a while, then head of marketing. And then 2 years ago, I left and I started a company called Taste Venture, which is basically we build, invest, and advise F&B and hospitality startups. And on the side, I'm also doing an agency, a growth agency and marketing agency to help startups scale. So that's what I've been doing for the past 2-3 years now. Pretty interesting. And I'm really excited to be talking to you because you're in the F&B sector, hospitality sector. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you've been doing.
Sure. So my name is Anna. And as you just mentioned, we studied both at a hospitality school in Lausanne. So that's my background, hospitality management. I'm also Swiss. And since 2017, co-founder Noemi and myself, who I've met actually at this school as well, we founded Kitro, which is a startup which focuses on the food waste management in the hospitality industry.
When we talked on the phone last time, you said you started thinking about the company. We'll come back to that, but about in 2015, right? And then you really started the whole process and your first client in 2017.
So, 2015 was kind of, at the end of 2015, we first had a rough idea of the concept, but it wasn't exactly what it is today. We really then got more into it in 2016, which was the last year of our studies as well, so the last final semester, and started to really think about how this could actually work. And so we only got started then a year later, beginning of 2017, 100% to work on it.
Okay, cool. Maybe just so that everybody understand, as a lot of people know, Seedstars' mission is to impact people's lives in emerging markets through entrepreneurship and technology. You're doing exactly that, impacting people's lives through technology and entrepreneurship. The only bit that is missing is the emerging market part. Can you tell us a bit more about how you got in touch with Seedstars and how it all started?
We founded a company in Lausanne, so Seedstars is quite well known there, also with the global summit that takes place there and so on. So we kind of got to know Seedstars quite early on in our entrepreneurial journey, or how you want to call it. But we also were invited then to the summit, I think was it now 2 years ago, where we had a smaller booth as well and a presentation. And then last year, we were looking into the expansion into Southeast Asia. We were in touch with a few people there, and that's why we participated at the regional summit in Southeast Asia to kind of do some initial market research for an expansion, for example. And yeah, that's how we kind of got in touch.
And before we get, into more details about the company and about your journey, I think I need to address the elephant in the room, which is what is happening right now. With this whole crisis, because you're in the hospitality industry, it's affecting you quite a lot, I guess. Yeah. Can you tell us maybe a bit more about how do you dealing with it, maybe even on a personal level or with your company? What's your plan? How do you see the next few, it's hard to plan, but in the next few maybe days or even weeks, how do you see the company evolving?
Yeah, I mean, we provide the hospitality industry with a product. So since every one of our clients are kind of shut down, or most of them at least, it has a huge impact on our business for sure. So how we address it at the moment, I mean, it is a big challenge that came our way, which we weren't really prepared for this. It has helped us now to really rethink different dependencies we have or risks in the business. We, of course, initially talked to the team as well and tried to figure out what are the next steps, who still has work, who doesn't, which parts, like, can we refocus on something else, since customer success or even sales is now kind of on the low how do you say?
Yeah, on the downside, yeah.
On the downside, yeah. So we're shifting focus within the organization to focus more on product development or getting sales documents ready or revamping pitch decks and so on. So there's still a lot to be done that we can do during this time, but it has had definitely a huge impact. And one big uncertainty is, of course, how is the market going to look like once they reopen again? Are they going to just continue how they used to? Most people assume not. Many people will also probably go out of business depending on how long this lockdown is going to be here for. So we're facing interesting times, I would say.
Yeah, we can say that. What's your instinct? Let's say, what do you think when the market opens again? Let's put it this way, especially in the hospitality industry, what do you think is going to be the first response to people regarding an issue such as food waste that you guys are tackling?
It's a good question. I mean, for us, the initial reaction of all hotels or potential customers or actual existing customers was really once the shutdown was announced, everyone was just like, oh, we drop every project we have right now. We need to save costs. So this was the initial reaction, which is completely understandable. I think every company has had to go through this thought process. Now the question is, afterwards, once they open again, how well are they situated? Are they supported by the government? Yes or no? And then the issue of food waste, it has become an interest point for many restaurants in the past few years. But it's also something that people start focusing on when everything else is going smoothly, right? So it's not something essential for your company that you have to have in place in order to survive, but it's something that you can start doing once you have everything in place and it's going well. However, on the other side, what we see with food waste is, of course, the cost savings you can have from it. So once you start measuring your food waste and you analyze it and you know where your problem areas are and you can reduce those, then you can save costs. And this is definitely aligned with the interests of our potential customers that will reopen again, but probably are facing some cost reduction measures, or they need to think about those. So it can go both ways. It's a very
I found that number on a study. Maybe you know best, so maybe let me know if that sounds correct. But I think it was a study in The Guardian that was saying that it was in pounds. So for every pound that is invested in reducing waste, you save about £7 in profit. Is that something that sounds right for you?
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where you said Guardian.
It was in the Guardian, yeah, because I was doing some research and that's the number that came out. So I wouldn't even know if that's possible or if it's correct or whatever. That's why I wanted your thought on that, because you're the expert. So
yeah, you have to take it with a grain of salt. What we've seen in past measurements is really it depends so much on the team on site. what they do with the products such as ours. So they can invest in food waste measurement, but if they don't use the data or they don't implement any changes, then of course it's not very successful. But if they actually use it to its full potential and are open to make changes, then you can definitely see big savings.
And I think when we were discussing on the phone earlier today, you said you have about 37 Kitro, I don't know how you call these, but machines. How do you usually refer to them? I don't know, but you have them in 37. You have 37 of them on the market, correct?
Yeah, they're currently active in different outlets all over Switzerland.
Out of these 37, what would be the percentage you say that people are actually using them to their full potential and then actually doing the work after just using the machine?
Hopefully most of them, I would say. Of course, it's hard to assess it, and I also don't want to blame anyone. We've had pilots, for example, in the past that have failed due to this reason, which is why we're now paying a lot more attention to customer success, and also to kind of following our customers throughout their food waste measurements, and really stay in touch with them to make sure they're using it correctly. So we have been recently focusing a lot more on customer success and relations to offer more services to them, to those of the customers who need it, of course.
Okay, yeah. The reason why I was asking actually was because what I want to know from you is you started about 2 years ago, and I think how people see food waste and how they deal with it has changed a lot in the past few years. So have you seen a change from your first customers that was just maybe using the machine but not doing anything with the data that you got, and now everybody pretty much is trying to do something with the data and evolve and do better? Did you see a shift in these past few years?
We've seen a shift definitely in terms of when we talk to people initially, like in the first conversation, people are way more aware of the issue and why it is important to measure and reduce food waste. So this has definitely changed. Like when we first started, there was not this general awareness, also not from the staff from the hotel necessarily, but also individuals. So it was very interesting to see how this has really increased over the last 2-3 years. In terms of our customers, I think now with the new measures, we see that people are more on top of the data. As we've noticed that this is crucial for the product to work, of course. So we're paying more attention to that in terms of service. So not only the customers are more aware of it, but also we have learned over the past years while working with the customer, what services do they need, what services don't they need, and so on.
Okay, so I've watched an interview and you were talking about, your first prototype had more features than you had more features at the beginning and you removed some of them. Is that what happened? Or because that's not a mistake, but that's what a lot of people are doing. They add way too many features. They have way too many things, and then they realize that they don't need all of them. And then they focus on a more specific, product, for example. Is that what you went through as well, or?
I wouldn't say necessary. So we've always tried to really kind of follow the lean startup method. And our first prototype, it was really 3D printed. It had nothing fancy. It was like self-made scale by students of ETH, actually. So it was very, very basic, the first one. And so we went from there to improve the product. Also, initially, how we showed the data to the customer was actually not an online dashboard, how it is today, but it was a PDF report that we manually created. So it was very handmade and a lot of manual work behind it. And now we moved from there because we really wanted to build something that's meaningful for the customer and exactly avoid over engineering, because that happens quite often. So we really try to stick to the feedback what we got from the customers and not invest too much into developing a feature that won't be used at the end of the day.
You were talking about your first steps building the company. I want to take a few steps back and go there and understand a bit more about your first day as an entrepreneur. Like we said, you went to a hotel school, and I don't think a lot of people go to hotel school, me included, to become an entrepreneur in a way. What happened? What went wrong? Well, how did you start hotel school and then end up starting your own company?
Well, I started the hotel school, because I was always very interested in the whole industry, in the whole sector. I like different languages. I like working with different cultures. Like, there were a few things that fascinated me about the industry, and so I decided to go in that direction. I also did an internship before starting there to really see, is the hotel industry something that could be interesting. Yeah, so you're right. I didn't start EHL because I wanted to start an own business. That was not at all in my mind. We then, yeah, throughout EHL, I think there weren't that many entrepreneurial classes at that time. There was an elective in the last semester, but that was pretty much it. But actually, it started because I met Noemi, the co-founder at EHL. We became really close friends. We also did the second internship together in Miami, where we lived together, and so we really got along. And then there was a challenge on campus in towards the end of EHL, end of 2015. And that was about waste management and sustainability. And so we had to think about a concept, how to implement this. And it was really open in the front of the house or back of the house. And so that's how we kind of started thinking about it. And we were both initially very interested already in the whole sustainability aspect of within this industry, because we've worked a lot in the kitchens and threw away a lot of food waste. So we were already quite aware of the problem. And so we did this video. We participated in the challenge. The video is really funny to watch, actually. And it's not at all how the product that we have today.
How far was it? What was the initial lead? Because I think it's super interesting to see, maybe the first idea you have on how to tackle a project, and then the actual product that you guys are using and doing now.
The initial idea was way bigger. So it was also technologically not at all feasible. It included a robot machine that separated all the food, not only food waste, it was focused on all kinds of waste. So one hole, you throw everything in there, it separates it and analyzes it. It gives you a report about your waste management. Then there was also some inventory management system in it. And it was a huge pile of different products within one idea. It was, yeah. So that's actually where we got a really good tip from someone at school, from a professor at school. He said, focus on one thing. What are you doing here? This is not at all feasible. And so we really quickly focused only on food waste because, due to our personal experiences, we thought this is really something we can tackle and we want to tackle.
You had that challenge, that video that you did. It made you think about, what could be done. At that point, were you thinking okay, that's something maybe, that's something I can do. Maybe I'll start a business around it? Or was it still something, okay, it was a challenge for school. It was really interesting and fun to do. And then you moved to something else?
No, it was still a challenge. It was still a project that we did at school. It was extracurricular. So it wasn't part of any program, but we just, so Noemi and I, we just couldn't stop talking about it, basically. So for the whole last semester at school, we did our SCP as well. Together in the same group, but we constantly talked about this other side project. Then we called it Smart Kitchen, and so it's still at that point I still didn't plan to create a company. I don't know. I think Naomi neither. We were just having a lot of fun talking about it, and it excited us, and so we did a lot of research. But it wasn't yet in our heads that we would create a company. It was then at the end of EHL where we were okay, actually we want to continue this project and see where it goes. And so we took kind of side jobs after EHL to focus a bit more on Kitro.
Okay. At some point, again, I was doing some research, and I found some sort of a quote. It's not exactly what you said, but it was pretty much as long as you have a full-time job, you can't really make your company work. At some point, you're going to have to make the jump and focus on it 100%. Is that something you still believe in? Because I think that's what you did. You worked on the side and then some sort of combined the two. And then at some point it wasn't possible to do because you needed to, spend more time on the actual company. Is that something you still believe in? Would that still be your advice to, entrepreneurs that want to start something?
I think, yes, definitely. And we've seen it also with other startups that were in a similar program at the beginning where we just got started, and we were actually the only ones that were working on it 100%. And we were therefore also the only startup after more than 6 months that we advanced so much more in comparison to the others. Of course, because you focus so much more time on it. So it's a logical kind of conclusion. On the other hand, I realized other people don't have the luxury to do this. So for us, it was really, we came out of university, we didn't have any responsibilities. We had to pay some rent, but we then gave up that as well and started couch surfing. And we didn't have a family to feed and so on. So I can see that how people like who have more responsibilities, for them, they need a side income while they build up the other company. So, but for people that can do it, I think it's a very, very good way of starting, because you can still do so. We still did some extras on the side to get a bit of income, but the main focus was really Kitro.
Okay, so you were actually working. You had a full-time job, I guess, in the hospitality industry, probably, and then you decided, okay, now it's time. Now we're going to make the jump and focus on 100% on Kitro. What happened to help you make the jump? Was it well? It's never an easy decision, but what happened, and what was your thought process doing that leap and starting to work on 100% on your project?
Yes, that's a good question, because actually, I wouldn't suggest for everyone to just say, I have an idea, let's quit my job and do this. There is some preparation time where you need to look into market validation, and is there really talk to customers, for example, potential customers, find out if people would want this product before you actually start building it and invest a lot of time and money into it. So there is a certain period before that where you should really be honest with yourself as well, and realize if people don't want your product, maybe you need to pivot in a way, but really be listen to the market first before you let everything else drop. For us, the stage where we said, okay, we need to do this 100% was actually after the first customer meeting, who said, yeah, we want this product. So we kind of went, since we couldn't code or do anything technical related, we went with the A4 sheet as our MVP. And nice. This is what we can do. Do you want to try it? And then the person was like, yes, let's install this in our restaurant. We're happy to try it. And then we were like, oh, so now we actually need to build this somehow. And then we realized we need to spend a little bit more time into finding people who can build this, into ideation. How are we going to build this? Is this even possible? And there were so many questions. And that night we actually, after this meeting, we were like, okay, let's quit the jobs and do this.
Cool. Nice. Okay. I love that. So you signed your first client with actually not that much. You had pretty much nothing, and you signed your first client.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. Okay, nice. What happened then? Because I know, there's a lot of people saying that, if you're not software engineer, you shouldn't, start a software company if you're not. But you guys, sure, you studied hospitality, both of you, but you didn't have any knowledge or any background in hardware or even just proper, building the software that the machine needs. How did you deal with that? Do you think it's a good idea? Would you do exactly the same if you had to do it again? What do you think?
This actually, it was one of the biggest challenges initially, I would say, because yes, you have an idea of a product, and we were thinking very customer focused, or because we came from the problem side, so we knew how we need to have this product for customers, but we didn't know what it implies with technological background, and so that was super interesting to find out over the past few years. Even now, still there's more and more. It's like a puzzle, and it all comes together. But currently, we're actually developing multiple products at the same time, because it's quite a large scale of things that you need in order to just make this one thing happen. So it was a challenge initially to also find someone. So to find the first person to join the team, because how are you going to hire someone or find a co-founder, technical co-founder for a job that you don't really know what exactly it entails? You cannot even check their background and if they're good at what they say they are, because you don't know. So yeah, there is help in there is coaches and people that can help you and sit in the interviews or so, but it was definitely a challenge for us. Ideally, I would say if you co-found a business or want to start a tech business, you would have already a person you really trust, a technical co-founder that you really trust to do it with. I think that's a really good mix between business and tech, that you have two people there, or even three then at the end of the day.
Okay, so did you actually started? Because if we take the timeline, so you sold that first, you sold it to one client. So okay, now we need to find a way to make it work. You need a piece of hardware. How do you get started? Who do you talk to? What was your process in actually building, your first prototype?
Yeah, so firstly, we had to find someone that could build it, right? So we went on a platform called Co-Found.me.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in Switzerland quite well known. And so through that platform, we found a few students at ETH in Zurich who said they could help us. And so we went to meet with them, and it was actually a win-win situation because they wanted to found an association helping startups without technical co-founders to build their first MVP. And we were looking for something like this. And so it was perfect. And we were their first customers in that sense. And so it was really, really lucky. And so they helped us build the first version, also the second version. We didn't have to pay their hours. That was also really generous. We just paid for the material. And so that was one step in order to get the hardware. But then to kind of grow, we realized we needed money. So we went and pitched at a lot of competitions. We looked into grants, governmental grants, and really participated at a lot of events to build up a network, to meet people, meet coaches, and so on. And that's kind of how it got then rolling. So we bootstrapped for quite a while until we entered an acceleration program where we then got more funding. And for that, we had to found the company end of 2017 then.
Okay, so now you're working with these students. You build the first prototype. What happened next? Because I guess it's always nice. You have your prototype, but then you go and you pitch clients all around you, and then you get what most people don't expect at the beginning, rejected most of the time. Is that what happened to you? How did you deal with it? How was the first sales that you guys went into?
Yeah, we kind of got lucky there because coming from EHL, we had this big network with people. So there's a database with all the alumni from EHL, and then we just filtered through it and looked who is in Switzerland, who is either food and beverage manager or GM or whatever, and then we just reached out to those people. That's also how we then got the second customer, and the third. The third was lucky. That was through just an info at email. But yeah, so we kind of leveraged our network to find first customers.
Okay, and so how fast did it go? Like, at what pace did you move? Like, you had your second customer pretty rapidly, and then it grew exponentially, or did you have one, and then it was a slow period for a long time?
I mean, we had this one prototype, so it was always a supply and demand. We had one prototype that we were using, then we built a second one for the second customer, which was the second one was a complete fail. And then we realized we need like at least 10 units in order to really like start measuring and get some traction. And so then we built with an agency, and by then we had some funding already. We could actually hire a bit more like a professional agency, or not professional, was still like in the range of what we could afford at least. And they would build us 10 kind of version 3 prototypes that we then were able to use all over Switzerland. And so this version 3, these 10 units, we used really all the way through end of 2017, all the way through beginning of 2019, actually.
And at that point, it was still just you and your co-founder, correct? Or you had more people coming in?
No, at that point we had then a CTO. And shortly after we had the 10 units, we also hired someone else from EHL as well, for more of sales and customers and marketing.
How did you find your CTO? Because I know for a lot of startups, especially in the F&B industry, it's never easy to find someone that has maybe a bit of experience with the hospitality world and that knows the tech side of things, because it's usually two worlds that don't really collide, let's put it this way.
Yeah, we didn't look for someone that had necessarily too much experience in the hospitality industry. I mean, we could explain him why we're doing this and why it's solving a problem. He didn't necessarily have to understand a lot about the industry. I would say for us, it was more important, does he know about machine learning, image processing, and all these things, because our device uses a lot of deep learning and so on. And so we found this person actually online on a platform as well, which was quite lucky.
So you found a lot of the people that you started working with just looking for people online that might help you, and it actually worked.
Only at the beginning, actually.
Okay.
It only worked at the beginning, and then like who we have now in the team, most of them, I think all except for one, we've met through friends and family or coworkers of people. So now we're using a lot more our network to hire than at the beginning. Of course, we didn't have that, but
Because you don't have a choice. Yeah. Did you have a bad experience hiring people, or not necessarily hiring, but starting to work with people that you found online, or were you lucky and it was always sort of a good match?
No, it was not always a good match.
Okay.
But that was also more our fault in hindsight. We didn't take enough time to get to know the person because we were stressed, of course. And then for the second time, so it happened 2 times that we hired somehow someone that wasn't really fitting the organization in terms of values or like what their goals were, or in terms of how to just work together. And in a small company or in a small team, it's really important that people also align on the values and how they work. And so we had to realize that also at one point, and had to let go already of 2 people, and both of which we found online and not through connections.
Okay.
That has a lot to do with timing. For like, we were quite stressed, especially for the second person. We were extremely stressed to hire someone for that position because the investors wanted to see that, because we wanted to close the financing round. And so we were kind of pushed into hiring this person just for the paper, so we can actually close the round.
Yeah, when you do it, when you hire in a hurry, it's never a good. Well, yeah. Sometimes it works, but usually it's never the best strategy, because you don't take, like you said, you don't take the time to know the person as just another human that you're going to work with and spend, especially when you're at the beginning, spend a lot of time with, and sometimes it's not you hire the person, he has everything that you might need as a sales guy or whatever it is, but then at the end it's not something that will work because of just the person sometimes just doesn't fit.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this saying like hire slow, fire quick.
Yeah,
so that's definitely true, and we didn't do that with the last person. We hired him super quickly, and then took quite a long time until we were like, okay,
now it's time.
Yeah, so now we've learned from that, I would say.
How many people are now working in the company?
Now we're 9.
They're all based in Switzerland. Are you guys working remotely? I guess now, sure, it's a bit of a weird time, but let's say if nothing happened, how would it be?
Yeah, so 8 people are based in Switzerland, and 1 person is based in Serbia, and then we're working with an agency as well in Serbia, where another additional 3 to 4 people are kind of part of the extended team. And we're also working with an agency in Africa with roughly 12 people there.
Cool. Where about in Africa?
In Nairobi.
Okay. And what are they doing?
They're helping us on the image annotation part of things.
Okay, cool. Did you find them online, or was it a connection?
That is actually, so Hofmann and Noemi, she's focusing more on partnerships, and I think she found them online because she just did a lot of research on different companies that offer such services, and then she started really calling with them, getting references, calling more, and kind of narrowed it down until we had like top 3, top 2, and then decided eventually for them. Yeah.
Okay. One thing I'm really curious about, because that's something I always want to ask people, is why do you think it sort of struck a chord with you, and you really wanted to start that company and change the world for the better in that direction, instead of maybe something else that you had in mind? Because I guess we all have different things, different paths that we can take. Yeah. Why food waste, and why do you think for you it was so important?
There's different points to it. One was definitely one experience I had while working in a hotel, and I did front office, but I did like a cross training in another department, so banquet department that time, and that was before I started EHL actually. But there, after banquet was over, I stood really next to the bin and was throwing away all these all the food, all these little nicely put together hors d'oeuvre, and so I was just throwing those away, and you just stand in, and that's when the first time it really shocked me. I was like, oh my god, we just, from this one banquet, we threw away so much food, and that's happening all over the world every day. And so that was kind of the first time I really realized it. And now, I mean, I grew up as well with grandparents, my grandparents, they were growing up during the war. So for them, it's really important that they save every bit of food and never waste it. And they still do that today. And so I love also a conversation with my grandmom on that side. And yeah, that's kind of how I got really aware of the issue. And then it was really after we won this competition with the video in EHL, and we looked into more facts and figures about food waste. That's when we realized, oh my God, the impact on the environment is so big, and we could actually do something about it in such an unnecessary waste. While other people are starving, we just kind of live in an abundance and throw it away. So I guess, yeah, it's at different stages in my life. It came back, and once you actually start doing research about a problem like this and you realize how big the impact is, you're like, okay, I cannot just not do anything.
Do something about it. And you've been working with your co-founder for quite some time now. From what you were saying before, you guys, studied together, lived together, worked together. We always hear that, you shouldn't start a company with your friend. It's gonna, it's not a good idea. It seems to work for you guys in a way. So what would be your advice to people that come to you and say, I want to start that company, but it's with my friend and I'm not sure it's gonna work?
I was, to be honest, very, very lucky and to have found someone like Noemi. And also I'm still super happy we started this together. Because if you're already it made it so much more fun because we knew each other as friends before. You also know how the person reacts a bit in certain situations, but that, of course, you learn it a lot more when you work on a project on every day together. But no, it was actually, I would do it again. I wouldn't have done it without her. And to find someone that, for us, it was good because we knew we can work together. So we realized that during different projects at school already, that we can work really well together. And so it wasn't really a big problem. I can see that with some friends of mine, I could probably not work so well together and I wouldn't start a company with them. It's definitely important to start a trial run and see if it matches. That's definitely, because I've heard from friends that friendships can really be destroyed if you really start a company and then it doesn't work out for some reason.
Let me know if I'm wrong, but from what I understood at the very beginning of the company, it was three of you, correct, that thought about the project, if we take it back in when you were at school, and then just one of them, wanted to do something else and she left. Can you tell us the story? Because I think that's also very, very interesting because it was three and then you guys are two. And I think the person who left is very happy doing whatever she's doing, apparently.
Yeah.
Was that a difficult time? Was it just, it was just the beginning? So it was, you were still figuring things out. What happened?
No, it was not at all a difficult time, actually. So we started it as three people. Another friend who was at that time Naomi's roommate. She was also part of the initial, the challenge, the video we made. She was there in the project. But then we just kept talking about it also without her. And then she also, for her, she wanted to stay in the hospitality industry. So that was why she did the school, and she had already plans what she wanted to do after. And so towards the end of the university, we then sat together and we're like, okay, look, we want to continue it for sure. What about you? And she then moved to Dubai and she's really happy with what she's doing. But she was not at all like, no, you cannot do this without me. Or there was no, not.
So it went well.
Conversation, okay. Actually, everyone knew what they wanted and then we just.
Okay, it went well. That's good.
Yeah, for sure. No, we're still all friends.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Cool. And I guess because of what's happening now, your plans and your strategy for the next few weeks or next few months is a bit messed up and in all different directions. But what's next for the company? Let's imagine everything goes back to normal in a sense. What's your next step for Kitro in the next few months or even years?
Well, more close, looking at more like a closer time frame. Next few steps will be, and that's something we just are getting started with, is we're kicking off the new development for the dashboard of our users. So we are going to add some features, make it a bit more better on the usability side. So from feedback we collect at the beginning of the year, we'll now implement this and start the sprint soon with our partner in Serbia. So that's something that we're still on track with. We're also launching a new hardware version end of this year, which will look essentially the same from the outside, but will have a lot of changes in the inside. So our CTO is really excited about that. So we still have quite some plans on the product development side, I think, where we can make the product stronger, and that's what we're focusing on right now as well in this downtime.
If you could have a billboard, anywhere in the world, and that everybody would see it, what would it say on it? You can put whatever you want on it, but what would you say, and what would you put?
We always say in our pitches and presentations as well, what gets measured gets done. That's pretty much our mantra here at Kitro, which makes sense since we measure food waste. That's definitely one that would fit, I guess, the company.
It would be interesting. I guess a lot of people would just go and check the website. Talking about website, where can people learn a bit more about Kitro?
On our website.
Okay, so the URL is
www.kitro.ch.
So first question, what impact do you want to have?
We want to save food waste in general, and so far we've saved over 200,000 meals since we started measuring, and so our goal is really to get the number up.
How many jobs have you created so far?
Immediate jobs, we've created 9, and with the extended team, I would say roughly 25.
What are your company's values?
We value the environment, of course, quality, focus on the Swiss quality, and also collaboration.
What quote or phrase would describe you or your company best?
One is what gets measured gets done, and the other one would probably be it all happens so fast.
Would you have a book or a documentary, something that you've read or watched in the past few weeks that you would recommend?
I actually watched a documentary 2 days ago. It's called More Than Honey, made by a Swiss filmmaker. So there's not that many Swiss documentaries that are also translated to English, but this one is actually really interesting, and it's focusing on the honeybees and why they are slowly dying out.
Thank you very much for your time. It was very interesting talking to you. What you guys are doing is pretty amazing. Good luck with, honestly, whatever is happening and whatever will happen in the next few days. Wish you the best of luck, and hopefully we'll be in touch very soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Anna. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to our hero's journey, and subscribe now for more stories on Seedstars podcast.